My dearest, darling, sweetest Grace. Your dear, loving little note at hand. We missed the train on active James W. Pell. When I told him we were going to Virginia, he said he wanted to go to you and be spanked and whipped with a rope on his bare ass by you and your daughter. He said you were the prettiest, sweetest, loving little woman he ever saw, and your girl was just lovely. He was all set for a good whipping and expected you to strip him naked and both of you give it to him. I knew both of you would love him, for he is a dear soul with a heart of gold. He cried, so I had to take down his pants and spank him good. But I do love you, Grace, my darling, with all my heart. If you were my own dear wife, you would not be afraid of me. Your nice, pretty, fat, sweet ass. I'm a very passionate man. Out in Hollywood at the clubs, I often hear men say when they saw a pretty woman, if she was mine, I would kiss her sweet ass, drink her number 1, and eat her number 2. When you strip me naked, you will see what Mrs. HPW called a most perfect form. Yours the sweet honey of my heart. I can taste your sweet piss, your sweet shit. You must pee-pee in a glass, and I shall drink every drop of it as you watch me. Tell me when you want to do number 2. I will take you over my knees, pull up your clothes, take down your drawers, hold my mouth to your sweet, honey fat ass, and eat your sweet peanut butter as it comes out fresh and hot. That is how they do it in Hollywood. You won't need toilet paper to wipe your sweet, pretty fat ass, as I shall eat it all, then lick your sweet ass clean with my tongue. The last confirmed victim Fish was convicted for was that of 10-year-old Grace Budd, the very murder that ultimately ended in his capture. On May 28, 1928, Fish visited the Budd family home in Manhattan, New York City, in response to a classified ad in the Sunday edition of New York World. He introduced himself as Frank Howard, a farmer from Farmingdale, New York, looking to hire their son, Edward. He offered $15 an hour to the poor family and promised to return the following week to take Edward and his friend to his farm to begin working. He failed to appear on the promised day, but set a new date to meet the boys via telegram. On June 4th, he arrived as promised with gifts for all of the Budd children to discuss the job offered over lunch. Because he had become so fixated with 10-year-old Grace Budd, he explained to her parents that he had to attend a birthday party for his niece and convinced them to allow Grace to attend with him. Though Mrs. Budd was initially hesitant, Mr. Budd convinced her that the outing would be a good thing for their daughter. They dressed Grace in her Sunday best and watched her leave with Fish, never to be seen again. When Grace never returned, Mrs. Budd reported her missing to the police and an investigation ensued. 7 years passed, and another man by the name of Charles Edward Pope was arrested and convicted of the crime before an anonymous letter arrived at the Budd residence. After the letter was read to Mrs. Budd, it was given to the police and fell into the hands of Detective William F. King. Though the letter had no return address, there was a small hexagonal emblem with the letters NYPCBA that was traced back to the New York Private Chauffeurs Benevolent Association. King spoke with the janitor at the company and found out that some of the stationery was taken home and left at his rooming house at 200 East 52nd Street when he moved. King then found through the landlady at the rooming house that Fish had checked out several days earlier and requested that she hold money that had been sent to him by his son. After waiting outside of the room for Fish to return, the nightmare had finally ended, and Fish was arrested. Fish admitted to the 3 murders of McDonald, Gaffney, and Budd, going into the most detail when speaking about the very murder he was caught for. He chillingly recounted how he had gone to the Budd home with every intention to kill Edward, that it never even entered his head to rape Grace Budd. He would later admit that he had 2 involuntary ejaculations as he knelt down on her chest and he strangled her. Everything he confessed during his interrogation would later be used during his trial in March 1935. The trial lasted all of 10 days, Fish pleading insanity and claiming that his crimes were ordered by God through the voices in his head to kill children. He was described by psychiatrists as being a psychiatric phenomenon, that no individual who possessed so many sadistic sexual abnormalities could be found in legal or medical records. Another psychiatrist, Frederick Wortham, testified on behalf of the defense that his claim of religious influence in his crimes was tied to his obsession with religion and the story of Abraham and Isaac. He believed that in the sacrificing of a boy, he would be forgiven for his sins and protected by angels, even if he was violating one of God's laws. It was questioned why Brace Bud had gotten his attention, and subsequently justified by saying that Fish saw her as a boy due to her tomboyish nature. Even his cannibalism would be tied to religion. The flesh and blood of his victims were a sadistic association with Holy Communion. Gordon testified that he believed Fish to be insane, that his understanding of right and wrong was skewed by his religious opinions of sin and atonement. Menace Gregory, former manager of the Bellevue Psychiatric Hospital, testified about the treatment given to Fish during his incarceration in 1930 and completely contradicted the defense's insanity plea. He stated that though the sexual perversions Fish exhibited were taboo, they were not symptoms of a mentally sick man. Perry Lichtenstein, a physician at the Tombs, noted that Fish's behavior was not considered masochism due to the punishment being done as a means for sexual gratification. He also testified that the cannibalism was not an indication of psychosis either, due to it being a matter of taste. The final nail in Fish's coffin from the defense was his own stepdaughter, 17-year-old Mary Nicholas. She described how her stepfather taught the kids a game where they would be forced to play into his sexual fetishes. He went into his room and he had a little pair of trunks, brown trunks, that he put on. He put those on and came out into the front room and he got down on his hands and knees. And he had a paint stick that he stirred paint with. He would give the stick to one of us and then he would get down on his hands and knees and we would sit on his back, one at a time, with our backs facing him. And then we would put up so many fingers. And he was to tell how many fingers we had up. And if he guessed right, which he never did, we weren't supposed to hit him. Sometimes he would even say more fingers than we really had, and if he never guessed that right, we would hit him as many fingers as we would have up. In March 1935, though the jurors believed him insane, Fish was sentenced to death by electric chair. His execution took place January 16, 1936 at 11:06 p.m., with his last words being, "I don't even know why I'm here." Witnesses stated it took 2 jolts before Fish died 3 minutes later, starting the rumors that the pins in his body short-circuited the apparatus. The final report after the execution stated that James Dempsey was in possession of several pages of handwritten notes Fish penned in the hours before his death. He responded with, "I will never show anyone. It was the most filthy stream of obscenities I have ever read." The Gray Man, the Werewolf of Wisteria, the Brooklyn Vampire, the Moon Maniac, the Boogeyman. No matter the name, Albert Fish struck fear in the hearts of Americans for years long after his execution. Whether you believe he was insane or whether you believe him a calculated psychopath using religion to justify his atrocities against children, he will remain a ghastly tale until the end of time.